Okay, everybody, welcome to C-10's 2021 annual public meeting. I'm Natalie Hiltreat. I'm the executive director, and many of you know each other. We have some old friends and new. With us there is Mike Manser, who is busy working. He's our network administrator, and we're here in our Amesbury office. So I am going to turn it over to Jared Hubbard, one of our board members, who's going to I'm going to put you on the spotlight here, if I can figure out how to do that. Oh, and there's Jared. So take it away, Jared.
Hello, everyone. Welcome, and thanks to all of you who've supported C-10 for many years, and to our new friends who are here maybe for the first time. My name is Jared Hubbard, as Natalie said, and I'm an attorney here in Newburyport. I'm a member of C-10's board of directors. So I got involved with C-10 a few years ago through meeting Natalie and hearing more about the organization. And I became very interested because I have 3 young children at home. And so making sure that they're safe is one of my top priorities. It's really my top priority. My family we live less than 8 miles from the Seabrook nuclear plant. And so C-10's mission of making sure that the plant's safe and that the community and the environment around it are protected really speaks to me. And that's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about being involved. And despite the pandemic and everything moving online this last year, C-10 has really had a busy and successful period over the last year. You'll hear some highlights soon from Natalie, our executive director, about that. But before we get started today, we do have a few housekeeping items. By now, most of you are familiar with Zoom. We've chosen to conduct this as a Zoom meeting instead of a webinar to make things more personal. So hopefully we can get the technology cooperating here. We're looking forward to all returning to in-person soon, but we're still operating by Zoom at the moment. And all of you are muted mostly to start here. After each of our speakers, we will have time for a few questions, and you can use the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen, and it may either be in the reactions field or under the participants where you can find that raise hand button. And when you're called on, we'll unmute you, or you can use the chat feature to ask a question to Natalie, and we'll do our best to get to those. If you do have any technical issues or any questions like that, please chat with Pat Skibby, and she'll work with you to help fix those. For most of the time, we'll turn on Spotlight, just like it is right now, to show the featured speaker. And in the upper right-hand corner of your screen is a grid where you can pin a speaker and change your on-screen name if you need to do that. Since we aren't in person, it is nice to be able to put names to the faces, and so that's very helpful. And you can turn your camera off if you like, or you can keep it on during the Q&A, however you please.
I forgot to share the screen. Here's our intro slide too.
Lastly, and finally, this meeting is being recorded, and we will be uploading it to our YouTube channel by around noon tomorrow. And you can find a link on c10.org/events. Now, C-10 is a membership organization. We would not be here at all without your support, as well as that of the Massachusetts Department of Public Health, our grant funders, our business allies, and our community partners. We're very grateful to our elected officials who help to ensure that funding for the monitoring in Massachusetts keeps going every year, and they help to elevate the awareness of the safety concerns here in Massachusetts and throughout the country. And particularly, we would like to thank the offices of U.S. Senators Ed Markey and Elizabeth Warren, State Rep. Jem Kelcourse, and State Senators Diana DeZoglio and Bruce Tarr. And a special thanks goes out to the New Hampshire Citizens Initiative to expand radiological monitoring in New Hampshire, which is led by Portsmouth State Representative Peter Somsich, and which has been instrumental in helping us to expand the monitoring network in New Hampshire. On this slide here, you can see a list of our tremendous volunteer board members, our business allies, and our grant funders. We're particularly grateful to the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation and the Quaker Hill Foundation for the support of the monitoring network. Now I want to hand it off to our extraordinary executive director, Natalie Hiltreat, who'll tell you a little bit about what C-10 has been doing this past year. Take it away, Natalie.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Jared. Hi, everybody, and thanks again to all of you who have joined us. I'm Natalie, and I have been the executive director here at C-10 for a little more than 4 years. Here I am in our Amesbury office, an old mill building, and if I look out our window towards Powwow Hill, the highest point in the county, I can see the roof of my childhood home. So it's really coming home for me. This is Amesbury. Our office is less than 5 minutes away from, or 5 miles from Seabrook Station. And my home in Salisbury is also less than that. So I'm going to, let's see, back and forth on this share screen item here. Okay. So just to review again what we're doing, we've heard from Jared. I'm going to give a little bit of a quick update on some of the things that we've been working on, thanks to your support. And then we're going to have a vote to elect our board officers, who we just, before this meeting, had a vote on, and I want to affirm them with you all tonight. And then we've got some terrific speakers, as you can see. So let's see. So first off, I'm going to start a quick poll here, and I'm going to ask you all to answer it if you could take just a minute. How long have you been aware of or following or supporting C-10? What are you most interested in our work, and gauging where you live? Okay, I'm going to give it just another minute or so because I see people are answering. And all right, going once, going twice. 24 of 28 answered. 25. All right, that's a good. I'm going to consider you're all in. I'm going to end the polling. And I will let you guys see this because it might be of interest. So many of you, more than half of you, have been involved in C-10 for a long time. You are most interested in our tracking of in research of safety concerns, and many of you, 72%, live within the 10-mile radius. So that is interesting to see. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Hey, Jack, you're not muted.
I thought you were doing it automatically. Here we go.
Sorry. Okay, so let me get back to my slide here. I'm going to give you a quick overview of what we've been working on in the last year or so. So as many of you know, in last fall, we had a very big milestone after 10 years of following and actually bringing to light issues with the problems of the degrading concrete at Seabrook Station. A board of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, called the Atomic Safety Licensing Board, ruled that Seabrook could continue operating, but had to implement 4 new stricter license conditions regarding the way that they monitor the cracks in the degraded concrete and the progression of the problem. So that was a really big deal. We follow other safety issues, broader issues, such as the Nuclear Regulatory Commission is considering extreme license extensions for letting plants operate as long as maybe 60, 80, 100 years. And for those that live near nuclear plants, we want to make sure that the maximum amount of testing and sort of biopsies are going on of existing plants to understand how their materials are aging and holding up. Especially, we're interested in concrete. We have made some important behind the scenes upgrade. Mike is over there probably toiling now. He has installed new microcomputers at a number of sites. He has updated our central station. We have added 3 new monitoring stations in New Hampshire Thanks again to the work of the Citizens Initiative. There is Rep. Somsich, who I think was hoping to join us tonight. We have had or will have coverage by a number of local media stations. We're pleased to have WBUR's Bruce Gellerman has joined us for this meeting. He is interested in our topic tonight, climate resilience, and he's actually going to come up on Monday and meet with me and Mike and interview us, and with our other speaker, David Theodore, as well. And we have a very active blog and social media as well. So many of you are familiar with the concrete issues. I'm not going to go into this in depth. We do have a lot on our website. If you go to c-10.org, we have blogs, we have resources, we have overviews of the 200-page ruling that the judges made and what they ordered, and why we had wished that they'd gone a little bit further with the specificity and measurability, enforceability of the new conditions that they added. But in any case, here again are the overview of the conditions that were ordered last September. So it's definitely a win for public safety. This is something that would not have happened without our small group and a world-leading expert, Dr. Victor Sauma, and our wonderful attorney, Diane Curran, who are working with us. So we're proud of that. As you saw from the poll, most of us live right here in the region. And so we are concerned to make the plant as safe as it can be for as long as it's operating and beyond. We are also planning for a strong future. We have a real growing base of members. We're happy to see many of you have been aware of and involved for a long time, but we're reaching new audiences, which is very important for the health of any organization. Many newer, younger families, Jared mentioned, our board member, that he moved here and learned about Seabrook and wanted to make sure that it's safe. So a lot of folks, it's not really on the radar with all the other environmental, social justice, and even just day-to-day living that we have had to do to survive in this year or so plus of the pandemic. That's been really tough. So getting some awareness for people and seeing, helping them to have resources for what it means to live near Seabrook is something we're really proud of. We are proud of our strong relations with various levels of government. Particularly, we have a new resident inspector at the nuclear power plant at Seabrook. With the NRC, there are 2 resident inspectors, at least at every reactor in the country. And it's really important for us to be able to pick up the phone or shoot an email and say, hey, what's in this safety report? Or, hey, we got a call about something, or there was an inquiry about the safety issue. What can you tell us? And I have to say that the 2 resident inspectors, Chris Newport and Travis Don, are very accessible. They have, frankly, comforting things to say about the safety culture at Next Year Energy that owns Seabrook. And so that's good to hear. So it's, relationships with our local officials, with our state reps and senators who are helping us to work for more funding for the monitoring. We are funded publicly in Massachusetts, though there's an assessment on the nuclear plant that helps pay for our monitoring. And we're all privately funded in New Hampshire. And so, we've had a really strong fundraising year to help us keep moving forward. We're working to make investments into the equipment that we have. We certainly have a backlog of equipment because we've been fairly steadily funded from the Commonwealth of Mass for the monitoring for the past 30 years-ish, but we're working to increase that, and private dollars and grants are helping as well. So thank you all. So Pat, I am going to turn it over to you for our business item here.
Okay, thank you, Natalie. Every year we elect our board officers, and you can see on the slide in front of you the slate. We all serve as volunteers, and it's what's called a working board. In other words, we don't just sit there and vote or give our opinions. We actually carry out the work of the C-10 organization. So for this upcoming year, the officers slate is me, Pat Skibby, as president, Carrie Stratton Boyd as vice president, Jared Hubbard as treasurer, and Karen Claggett as clerk. And if you could all, if you wish to, affirm those choices by just raising your hand, that would be great. Thank you.
All right.
Board.
Pretty informal there, but There's no heated political elections here. We're thankful for everybody who serves with us. So next, we are getting close to the keynote speaker here, and I am going to share the screen one more time because we have with us David Theodore of Climate Resilient Internet, who I got to know, I think it was in January, David, right? For a long time at C-10, we thought, boy, if we lose the power, we're in trouble. We can't monitor. And in fact, one time we did have a situation a couple of years ago. The night before we went, Jared came with me and the aide to Representative Helcourse went to meet with the Department of Public Health and talk about why we needed more funding desperately for monitoring equipment. But the night before had been one of these bomb cyclones. And we had 6 of our stations that were knocked out, and it was not an easy thing for Mike to get them back online. So I always thought in my mind, yes, we've got to do more to make sure that we can harden against more severe weather. But little did I know when, I actually, a colleague in our building, so where we are in Amesbury is a place called CI Works, and there are a lot of innovative clean energy types of businesses here. And one of the guys said, have you talked to Mass Clean Energy Center? It's a quasi-governmental group that makes grants, startups, and all sorts of interesting projects that have to do with renewable energy. So I talked to them, and they said, and this woman there said, do you know Climate Resilient Internet? You've got to meet David Theodore. And I said, what do you mean? And so David will tell you more about how we got to working together. But first, what I'm going to do is see if I can queue up a little quick video here. And let's see, I want to get this looking in the best way here. And I need to share my screen again. Pardon me as I navigate through. Oops, wait a minute. I need to stop sharing and make sure I share the sound, I think. Okay.
C-10 Research and Education Foundation works to protect public health and the natural environment surrounding the Seabrook Station nuclear power plant. Since 1991, C-10 has been monitoring airborne radiation in the communities within Seabrook's 10-mile emergency planning zone, thanks to public and private support. The Citizens Radiological Monitoring Network measures beta and gamma radiation, as well as wind speed and direction. The network tracks ongoing permitted releases and could help emergency responders to protect the public in the event of a nuclear accident. With climate change the clear and present danger that it is today, C-10 must harden our network against storms and prolonged power and internet outages. To do this, we have partnered with...
I'm sorry, I just saw some chat.
There's no
You can hear
video.
the sound. You don't hear it? You
No,
don't
we
see
hear it. You can't see it.
Ah, interesting. Well, that's good to know. Okay, I think that I pressed that. Let me try that one more time because we did test this out, optimized for video. All right, Pat, I'm relying on you. Tell me. Okay, we did test this, I promise. Thumbnail video minute.
Press, yeah.
C-10
Can you
Research
see
and
it and hear it?
Education Foundation works to protect public
Yes,
health
good
and the
now.
natural
Okay,
environment
sorry.
surrounding the Seabrook Station nuclear power plant. Since 1991, C-10 has been monitoring airborne radiation in the communities within Seabrook's 10-mile emergency planning
Head
zone.
southwest on
Thanks
Boardman
to
Street
public
toward
private
High Street,
support.
then turn right onto High Street.
Citizens Radiological Monitoring Network measures beta and gamma
Somebody
radiation,
needs
as
to-
well as wind speed and direction. The network tracks ongoing permitted releases and could help emergency responders to protect the public in the event of a nuclear accident.
Turn right onto High
With
Street.
climate change the clear and present danger that it is today, C-10 must harden our network against storms and prolonged power and internet outages. To do this, we have partnered with Climate Resilient Internet to design a system that will use a certified resilient radio communications network powered by solar panels and batteries to ensure that our network is always on, particularly if extreme weather impacts our coastal region. This new system will relay data from our 18 monitoring sites to our central computing station in Amesbury, Massachusetts, and enable us to alert state officials when the network detects abnormally high readings.
Introducing the newest tool for the Climate Resilience Toolkit. Meet Climate Resilient Internet. Internet before, during, and after catastrophic weather. Improving public safety and healthcare, and preventing billions in business disruption. Welcome to Climate Resilient Internet. First, let's understand the problem. The world was alerted by a groundbreaking report on internet vulnerability.
New research from the universities of Wisconsin and Oregon found that our internet infrastructure is extremely vulnerable on the East Coast. Your phone may seem totally wireless, but before it reaches your phone, the internet has to move through tons of cables. And if you think there's no way we could actually lose our internet due to flooding, look no further than Sandy in 2012 or Irma in 2017. Sandy knocked out the internet to parts of New York City, while Irma left Miami without internet for weeks.
Now, let's listen to Verizon's experience in New York.
So we're here right now in Verizon's Broad Street Cable Vault. After the storm surge of Hurricane Sandy, this vault was virtually filled to the top with water, and that water table stayed in place for the better part of 2 days. We began a massive pumping operation to get the water out of the vault, but we had the challenge of subterranean water in the surrounding area that kept coming into the vault as we were trying to get the water out.
A natural disaster is the worst time to lose Wi-Fi and cell service. And so we're proud to bring you the world's first climate resilient internet. Here's our mission. We take internet traffic from coastal floodplains and airlift it to an internet data center out of harm's way. The solution is resilient to the extremes of climate change, including storm surge, nor'easters, hurricanes, flooding, blizzards, heat waves, grid outages, and naturally, sea level rise. Here's how it works. We use hurricane-rated wireless that's HIPAA certified, FCC licensed, and has massive capacity. And we back it up by a generator or microgrid that also supports computers, servers, and devices. And now we connect to an internet data center that's not in a floodplain. Dishes are just 1 to 2 feet in diameter. We bypass flooded infrastructure and use independent power. This has been a presentation of Climate Resilient Internet. Thank you for watching.
Okay. So, David, where are you? There's so many people in this little tic-tac-toe box. Great. There you are. I'm going to pin you or spotlight you so we can see you. Great. Take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you, Natalie. And thanks to C-10 for inviting me to speak and to all of you for being here. As a quick background, I pioneered wireless broadband at the start of the internet from offices at 1 Kendall Square when that was the cheapest office space around. Back then, we put world-renowned institutions on the internet for the first time, including places like MIT, Harvard, and BU, Mass General, NASA, and UC Berkeley. In more recent times, I became a climate activist, and when I saw the rising connection between extreme weather and internet vulnerability, I co-founded Climate Resilient Internet. Our aim is to prevent critical internet outages on account of extreme weather and to move telecom from a mindset of disaster recovery to one of resilience. And to that end, we're advancing the first telecom certification for internet resilience to climate change, enabling upwards of 1,000 internet service providers to protect critical infrastructure across the US. And now, C-10 joins us in the vanguard, just as MIT and Harvard did many years ago, to vet a new solution that couldn't be more important to a society like ours, where all our mission-critical infrastructure depends on access to data. And as Natalie mentioned earlier, you may remember that in October 2019, C-10 lost half its sites for several days on account of a bomb cyclone that took out power in the internet. Considering the rise of extreme weather, we can expect more of the same in the future. And of course, the Fukushima disaster reminds us of weather's impact on your mission. As a result, C-10 commissioned us to design a solution that's independent of the power grid, and which uses radio signals in place of traditional cable internet, which depends on the power grid. You'll be hearing more about that in a moment, and also in a Q&A to follow. And I hope you're as excited as I am, because our collaboration will be a model to the world, informing many other critical applications like yours. And so thank you again for the role you're playing, not just for communities around Seabrook, but for communities everywhere. So Natalie, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to add myself here so we can chat. So hopefully that was a good overview for people to get a sense of what we're trying to do and why. I've been just totally impressed by what David has done and the fact that he sees the importance of our mission, and he's working with bigger institutions to try to do this. And he's also, developing a scaled down model that is going to let us keep our monitoring network all on, as I like to say, come hell or high water. We've got our evacuation zones, our routes are in flood zones, as are some of our monitoring and the plant itself. And so we want to make sure that we can always keep this going. Our monitoring is 24/7, and so we are there in the background, keeping tabs of what goes on radiologically in our region. Not all of it is from Seabrook, but we have sensitive equipment that picks things up. And we'd like to think that those extra eyes and ears help to kind of keep people honest, frankly. But this data could, as we mentioned, also be used in the event of an emergency, however unlikely that may be, that it could be used to help protect the public. And so keeping that on at a critical time is something that is very important. So now we have time for a few questions if people want to ask us anything. I will say that we're working out the kinks in the design phase of this. We are thrilled that the Quaker Hill Foundation, which is a small family foundation, and helped us last year with a grant to upgrade some of our monitoring equipment. They got on board early and gave us a grant that is going to help us fund part of this work. We are also about to submit a grant to the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center, as I mentioned, to help pay for this work. We're going to have new ongoing expenses as well that we're going to have to build into our budget to pay for operating this equipment. But we are going to make sure that it works. We're going to roll it out in a really thoughtful way, and make sure that it works with all of our site hosts, to whether it's a private home or a public building or business, to make sure that whatever we do works. And some of you remember on the video there was a microwave dish. These are actually antennas, right, David, that we would be putting up on our system.
Right. As opposed to a dish, these are going to be whip antennas, about 27 inches high. So it's a much smaller footprint than what you saw in the video, which is more for critical infrastructure like airports and hospitals.
So I'm going to try it this way. If under the little smiley face reactions, if you hover over the bottom of your screen, if anybody wants to use that button to raise your hand, not your literal hand, but your little computer hand, then I will see it next to your name. And if people have questions or comments that they want to make or ask, we can do it that way. And Pat, you're going to help me to look at that and scroll through. I think we've got 33 of us on here now, so we want to make sure that any questions on how this is going to work. I will say that, oh, Chris, go ahead, unmute you. Let's see.
Okay, thanks. I'm Chris Nord. I'm a board member, David, and thank you for taking the time to join us. It's very informative. It sounds to me like what you're describing is microwave system, radio signal system, and I'm aware that one of the issues with that is that you only have good signal in line of sight. And we were just working today installing a new monitoring station where there's no cell service, which tells me that there's probably very poor microwave for that area. So my question to you is, if microwave is what you're relying on to pick up the signal, what do we do for those parts of our monitoring network that don't have good microwave connection?
Yeah, thanks for the question. There's different types of radio systems, and technically most everything is microwave radio. Microwave refers to the frequencies that the radio operates at, and there's a wide frequency spectrum that defines what is microwave radio. Now, how the signal emits from the radio depends on the type of antenna. And so if you have a dish antenna, like what you see on a lot of rooftops, those antennas are highly directional. They need line of sight to another antenna, and that's a critical part of its operation. The radio that we're using with a whip style antenna operates at a lower frequency and doesn't have the same strict line of sight requirements.
Oh.
And so we actually did a line of sight analysis for all of the sites, and I think that there was only one or two that we couldn't directly hit, where in order to make that connection we would put a repeater on another structure that would have line of sight to the two endpoints.
Good question though, Chris. And the new station that was at a private home in Kensington helps round out. So now we have 6 monitoring stations in New Hampshire, all privately funded, and 12 in Massachusetts, including a control site down in Somerville, which is a control because it's outside of the 10-mile radius. But yes, there are some technical things to work out, but most of these, they either could see now. Again, I pointed out my window, I could turn the camera, but many of you know Powell Hill. You can see all the cell towers on it if you're out on the mouth of the Merrimack River, and that's the highest point in Essex County. And it's also very central to, our radius for monitoring. And so we've found a cell tower company that we can work with, and we've got a quote from them, and we've figured out how we're going to do this. We're working, one of the subcontractors is, you want to tell about Northwest Tower a little bit, and the sizing of the solar and battery and all that?
Natalie, thanks for mentioning powwow. That should have been the first thing that I said to Chris, because powwow is such a prominent location, and it's just serendipitous that you guys are all around there. And we're not only on Powwow Hill, but we're going to be 165 feet up the tower. Natalie, the question about Northwest Tower?
Yeah, I'm just how that we work with them, and how this, sort of getting the solar and the battery to work on indefinite primary source of power.
Right,
solar.
Northwest Tower is, they're a very important vendor out west that does most of its work in the areas where they're having wildfires. They do a lot of disaster recovery. They actually make their own weatherproof enclosures. And the CEO of that company, Tyler Booth, has been personally active here because we have limited experience with solar. And out west, they use solar with a great many radio installations. And so he has a particular strong level of expertise there that we're relying on. And so he's an essential part of the team and gives us a great deal of confidence.
Great. And I should mention somebody else who's on our team who's on this call is Dan Scythe, who's the manufacturer, the founder and CEO of International Medcom. And Dan, where are you? I just saw you a minute ago. Did you go away? Oh, anyways. Dan, oh wait.
Over here in the corner.
Sorry. Yes. So anyways,
Yeah.
Dan, as we've consulted with as
Yeah,
well.
I was wondering what frequency you're using for the radio transmission.
Oh, wonderful question. It's 900 megahertz.
So that's going to be better than microwave frequency. There'll be less attenuation from leaves and foliage. We installed a public health citizen monitoring network around 3 Mile Island back in the 90s. That was a 10-year pilot project, and we had to get a license, a radio license, and install a repeater on top of the mountain to cover 300 square miles.
Wow.
And so it was, quite an adventure. It sounds like your data center also has backup power as well.
Absolutely. That's part of completing the resilience design is actually terminating at a resilient, super secure data center. And the most resilient and secure data center that you can get is called Tier 4. Ratings go from Tier 1 to Tier 4, with 4 being the strongest, most resilient and secure. And so that's the data center that we're going to, which is on the Cambridge-Somerville line.
Wow. Well, I don't know. I think about these things late at night. So.
We'll talk more offline. We've
Yeah,
been
I'm
emailing
glad
about
that
it, but
it sounds really good. Sounds really good.
thanks,
Thank you.
Dan.
Yeah.
Well, we always see wireless after the fact. Whenever there's a wide-scale weather event and all the lines are down and trees are down, telephone poles are down, there's water in the streets, it takes too long to get that physical infrastructure back up, which is why sometimes, like, in Texas and even last summer in Long Island, we see outages that go on for days and weeks.
Yeah.
And what you always see when you watch the news broadcasts is you see all these, first responders with radio systems at the back of trucks, and they're putting them up, and they're running around, and it's really chaotic. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to preempt that and say, well, we shouldn't be so reactive. I mean, if we're going to have extreme weather more often in the future, then these wireless systems need to be baked into the primary solution. They can't be things that you haul out, a day or two after the fact.
Yeah.
But, it's kind of evidence that wireless works. Is like that's the first thing that Verizon and AT&T go to when all else fails. And I'll throw in a silly aside, but when you watch science fiction movies and all of that, when the world comes to an end, they always pan to a microwave dish somewhere because it's like the last thing that would still be standing.
Yeah. And you can, at that frequency, you can also do small directional gain antennas if you need to, right?
Absolutely. If we needed more gain, we could definitely do that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
I mean, these are pretty short distances for 900 megahertz.
Mm. Yeah. What's the power level?
It's just a few watts. I mean, it's
that'll go a long way.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Natalie, do you see? Natalie, you see there's a question in the chat from Andy Griffith, who says, would a radiological release interfere with the radio signal quality? A radiological release from Seabrook interfere?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
the levels would have to be horrendously high The stack monitor at 3 Mile Island did burn out, but that was right in the direct, path of the plume. But the levels would have to be extremely high outside of the plant to affect the radios. I don't think you would get that in any circumstances that weren't.
I have only seen radio signals impacted by other conflicting radio signals.
Yeah.
And we'll be doing a study to make sure that does not happen. So we're going to roll this out very carefully and thoughtfully. We've got a lot of fundraising to do, so it's not going to happen overnight, but we're hopeful that in the next several months or year, we will make some important gains. We have time for maybe one other quick question if somebody's got a burning one they want to ask of David. And otherwise, I will say, as always, you've got my email, natalie@c-10.org. You can always, if you think of something, send it along. Any other questions for David Theodore before we get to our second David of the night? Going once. So I want to thank Dan. Thanks for being on the call. It's great. We'll be working with you, and also Mike Manser, who's on the other side of the room from me, who's going to be integral in making sure that this works. It might be a phased-in approach. We will see with our existing systems. So thank you so much, David. It's been a real education and a pleasure working with you, and it's so great to share your enthusiasm. David actually made that neat little video too. It was his own video, and he spliced it together with a little intro of us. So he does it all.
We produced that initially for the city of Austin, and this is really exciting what you guys are doing. There are a lot of eyes that are going to be looking at this, so you can bet that this is going to be, a showcase, literally, to the world. So we're excited to work with you guys.
That's great. Well, we'll see you on Monday when Bruce Gellerman, who was he had to drop off, but he is the WBUR public radio in Boston energy and environment reporter who many of you listen to. So he is doing a story about climate resilient communications. So we will be a little part of that. So it's neat to be on the cutting edge. It can sometimes be a little scary, but we've got a great team. Again, David was really a pioneer in wireless microwave communications. So go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I want to close by saying that, the application is what's new, right? The idea of resilient internet access all the way to the data center, that's what's new, but there's actually no new scary technology involved in this. The radio technology has been out for decades. Solar's been proven. So, it's really about the individual signal strength connections from sites to powwow. And, we have every expectation that this is going to be rock solid all around.
When I was working with the 3 Mile Island Scientific Advisory Board, a major part of their focus was the communications problems. Mm-hmm. Phone lines. I mean, there was also the fact the NRC didn't answer the phone, but the communications of the data was really a weak point.
Yeah, it's ironic that we live in the digital age, and cloud computing is so important. And we've had 150 years of electronic innovation, but the first thing that we lose in a catastrophe is the ability to communicate. I mean, somebody had to figure this out because it's not tenable. And the thing is that the general public doesn't think that you can have internet access when AT&T and Verizon are down. They figure, well, if billion-dollar companies are down, of course we're going to be down too. But it's really about educating the public. For instance, National Grid can go down. It doesn't mean that you're going to lose power necessarily because you can have a generator. And it's basically the same type of idea, but there's a lot of education in this because most people don't realize that all of our internet access depends on the grid, and it's all based on underground and overhead cable. And that stuff, particularly around coastal areas, is really vulnerable.
Well, thank you so much again, David. And so there will be a lot more to come, and we thank everybody for your interest and support. And I look forward to meeting you in person. In all these months we
Same
haven't
here. Same
met
here.
with all of this video chatting and everything. So I'm going to take you off the spotlight. You're
Beautiful.
welcome. I hope you'll join as we, let's see, I'm going to put on Dave Lochbaum. You're going to be our main speaker now. So Dave is a man that needs little introduction to anybody who knows the nuclear safety world. But as many of you know, he had two careers, one at least, I will say, in the nuclear industry, and then with the Union of Concerned Scientists, with a stint in between training the inspectors at the NRC. So Dave has been, for years, I know Debbie Grinnell, who's our retired research director here at C-10, had worked with Dave. And when I came on, she said, such high praise for you. And I have been able to pick up the phone or email you at any point when we've had these technical questions, some of them that seemed quite urgent. And you not only explained really technical things in plain speak, but you also, more often than not, made a slide deck, a picture to help me understand and these technical issues, always with just the right amount of wit in there. So thank you, Dave, for joining us and talking about secret sauce.
Well, thank you, Natalie. And over the years, that relationship with C-10 and other groups around the country is really the theme that I want to address tonight. Just for some background, I joined the Union of Concerned Scientists, or UCS, in October of 1996 to work on nuclear power safety issues. Prior to that, I'd worked in the nuclear industry for about 17 years, most of the time at operating nuclear power plants. In late 2006, UCS reorganized, and I had a new supervisor who was not familiar with my work. It was a good time to look back on my first decade with UCS. I documented my reflection in an internal report titled Nuclear Safety Project 1996 to 2006, the 10-year dash. My two observations from that effort were that the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, or NRC, is better at establishing safety regulations than at enforcing those regulations. Trying to get the NRC to raise the safety bar isn't productive when the NRC allows plant owners to limbo beneath the bar. My second observation was that the common thread among successful campaigns to trick the NRC into enforcing teamwork with local citizens. Solid homework documents the problem, details how and why it violates federal regulations, and explains its safety significance. But solid homework is seldom enough by itself. I often say that the NRC stands for Nielsen Ratings Commission. Absent a headline, the most solid homework seldom matters. For example, in fall of 2001, the NRC staff itself gathered evidence of problems at the Davis-Besse nuclear plant in Ohio, so compelling that they drafted an order requiring the plant to be shut down for safety reasons. I've never seen a stronger circumstantial case of impending doom than the NRC staff assembled in drafting that shutdown order. But that draft order and the safety problems that prompted it were not made public at that time. There were no headlines, not even a short article back on page 35 of the newspaper. The news that fall was the 9/11 tragedy. An NRC senior manager shelved the draft order and allowed Davis-Besse to continue operating. When Davis-Besse finally shut down for refueling in 2002, the NRC staff's fears were confirmed. The NRC calculated that Davis-Besse came closer to a nuclear meltdown than any other U.S. reactor since the meltdown at 3 Mile Island in 1979. The plant had so many safety problems that it took an army of workers more than 2 years to fix enough of them for the NRC to allow it to restart. Teamwork makes a huge difference in the value of solid homework. Another example involves George Galatis, who at the time was an engineer for the Millstone nuclear plant in Connecticut. George compiled solid homework about spent fuel pool problems on Unit 1. George had seen other workers at Millstone and elsewhere raise issues to management and to the NRC to no avail. George partnered with We the People, a local group, to petition the NRC in August of 1995 about those safety problems. The teamwork resulted in a Time magazine cover story in March of 1996. Millstone Unit 1 never split another atom. Most of the safety problems that arose when I was at UCS affected more than one plant. Whenever possible, I pursued the matter at a nuclear plant where I could team up with local citizens. Once successful there, I'd try for the ripple effect to get that same problem fixed elsewhere. Local citizens prepare the media and elected officials about nuclear safety issues and concerns with the NRC's oversight or overlook. Those efforts build a foundation that greatly enhanced receptiveness to listening to concerns later. Absent that foundation, media representatives and elected officials often lack the time necessary to come up to speed on technical issues and default to accepting whatever yarns the company and the NRC spin for them. I first experienced the power that local citizens can wield when I worked during those 17 years I worked in the nuclear power industry. I worked at the Hatch plant in Georgia, the Browns Ferry plant in Alabama, the Susquehanna nuclear plant in Pennsylvania. None of those plants had local groups monitoring their performance. I also worked at the Grand Gulf nuclear plant in Mississippi. A local group backed by a member of Congress named Representative Ed Markey in those days put a huge spotlight on performance problems there. Likewise, I worked at the Hope Creek and Salem nuclear plants in New Jersey. A senator from Delaware by the name of Joe Biden focused attention both on the safety issues at the plant and the NRC's inability or lack of willingness to get them fixed. That made a huge difference. Having worked at nuclear plants with and without external scrutiny, I've seen how big a difference it makes. A worker can make a mistake that accidentally trips a reactor or causes a violation to be reported to the NRC and to the media. A worker making such a mistake at a nuclear plant in the spotlight faces much bigger career trouble than a worker making the exact same mistake at a plant in the shadows. No worker wants to make a mistake, but workers will take extra steps to avoid making mistakes when those mistakes will come at a high cost to their careers. C-10 and organizations like it compel plant workers and NRC inspectors to try their best. No one wants to read about their mistakes on page 1 or page 2 for that matter. C-10 has built a very strong foundation that has enabled many successes over the years. For only one of many examples, C-10, as Natalie mentioned earlier, teamed with a renowned concrete expert to compel additional monitoring of degraded concrete at Seabrook. The company and the NRC fought those measures, but C-10's foundation provided its expert the platform needed for a right to prevail. I'm glad to be on C-10's advisory board because the organization pursues the right issues, the right way, for the right reasons. 3 rights cannot make it wrong. Thanks, Natalie, and others for participating tonight.
Thank you, Dave. That was terrific. The only thing, sadly, that wasn't terrific was your sound quality. Back to that communication issue. So I have a sense, since you had that written, that you will be able to turn that into a wonderful blog for us.
I can do that.
That would be really great so that we can go back and revisit. Thank you so much. Are there any questions for Dave? We're coming up on the 8 o'clock hour. We have a couple other housekeeping items, but I'd love to allow folks a few minutes to react to what Dave had to say. Then, let's see, Chris, let's give a new Chris Nord. You can unmute you there. Go ahead.
Okay, good. Thanks. Dave, what do you think about the possibility of Seabrook running to 80 years, given that it has the concrete problems that it does? It seems to be we're headed in that direction.
I think there are a number of problems. Concrete is one of them that's kind of unique to Seabrook, but the NRC has also identified concrete aging, even without ASR, is an unknown. Paul Gunter and others have been trying to get the NRC and the industry to harvest concrete samples from plants that have permanently shut down so you can figure out how does concrete age when it's embroiled by neutron bombardment and other radiation effects. That's an unknown. The NRC and the industry are guessing as to how performance will be in the future. I think Paul Gunter and Beyond Nuclear have been trying to get some of those questions answered rather than have guesses be the day. But there are also other problems. You notice the Comanche Peak plant in Texas had a problem with a transformer last week that's causing problems in Texas during their heat wave. A number of plants are experiencing problems with equipment that's wearing out and failing. The transformers are not something the Nuclear Regulatory Commission monitors. So it's not something that gets the company's best attention and focus and oversight. Therefore, it's not being maintained as well, even though that's what makes money for the company. When you're not maintaining the things that make money for the company, it makes you wonder about the things that don't make money for the company. So I think it's unlikely that the plant can make it to 80, but right now the NRC's at least entertaining the notion of allowing it at Peach Bottom and perhaps Seabrook down the road.
All right, Dan, you had your hand up first, but then my mom has her hand up after, so we'll let you go first.
You should let your mother go first.
Okay, Barbara, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. This has been so informative and helpful. Thank you, Dave. Could you say something about the accumulation of the high-level waste at plants that operate for so many years? And what is the additional risk as that waste builds up? And would you say something, please?
Yes, it's definitely a problem because that waste was never intended or designed or licensed to be in that location for that duration. It was supposed to have been moved into a geological repository years ago in 1998. Because the federal government reneged on that contract and did not take the waste, companies are suing the government to recover their costs of storing the waste on site. What I'm talking to lawyers in DC and elsewhere about is perhaps citizens groups, communities living around these plants who are facing a burden from the waste still being there can also sue the federal government for the costs of their burdens associated with the government's failure to take the waste away. Until somebody puts some financial pain on the government, they're going to leave it in your backyard where it should not be. My biggest fear with the waste in those communities and places it shouldn't be is the sabotage threat. The ISIS of the world, the Timothy McVeighs, the people who, instead of going into shopping malls and businesses and shooting up people, may decide to blow up a waste dump. And that would be more than a bad day. That'd be like a bad decade for that community. So that stuff needs to get out of there into where it should be sooner rather than later.
Heavy stuff. Thank you, Dave. All right, Dan Scythe, you got your hand raised.
Yeah, the situation in Taishan in Guangzhou province right now with the 2 reactors with some fuel rod issues brings me back to my many trips I made to Massachusetts. They had the fuel cladding problem down at the Mark I reactor at Pilgrim back in the day. And related to that was the issues related to evacuation and how to evacuate a densely populated area. And with Taishan, you know, some of the same questions are coming up. When you detect krypton and xenon, does that mean that there's, you know, a serious issue as the French company, you know, indicated there might be, or is it okay to just have some damaged fuel rods? And, you know, I wondered what your thoughts are on that. Yeah.
Well, it's not good to have damaged fuel. Initially, the biggest target for that material are the workers, because if the radioactive material is getting out of the fuel rods, it's getting into the water. It's going to contaminate pipes and valves and other components that workers maintain and inspect. So the radiation burden, the radiation exposure that they experience is going to be higher as a result of the fuel damage. In addition, it's obvious that some of that radioactive material is getting out of the plant. The Chinese government has always doubled the limit for the people living around the plant, because they couldn't meet the limit originally. So rather than fix the problem, they just raised raised the limit and allowed the populace to be exposed to higher and higher levels of radiation. That's not the right fix. It's the cheapest fix, but it's not the right fix. The other problem was that if they have a further problem, if the turbine trips, if they have a loss of off-site power that puts a challenge on weakened and damaged fuel, the safety analysis assumed the fuel's in pristine condition. It's not. It's already broken. It's already got blisters on it or blemishes. So the amount of fuel damage is going to be greater if they have such an event than they anticipated. So it's a few years ago, the Corbin McNeil ran the Philadelphia Electric Company. He shut down Peach Bottom because they had just 1 or 2 leaking fuel rods. He did the right thing. He shut the plant down, identified what the leaking fuel was, got it out of there and replaced it with undamaged fuel. I got to hand it to Corbin McNeil. That cost his company money, but it was the right thing to do. A week before he did it, he approached me at a conference up at NRC and said, because I'd written a report about operating with failed fuel, and he said, "Do you stand behind that report?" And I said, "You can go to the bank on it. That's the best technical work I've ever done." And he shut that plant down. I don't think it was because of me. I think he was hearing it from his own people, but he wanted an outside person to check it, and he did the right thing. That's the exception to the rule. You don't see Vermont Yankee operated for a while with damaged fuel. Pilgrim, as you mentioned, most owners look at making money rather than doing the right thing, and that's I think that's what the Chinese are doing right now. And I think they'll pay for it in the long run, even though they're saving some money in the short run.
Well, when they say there's no radiation monitored off-site, typically these are gamma-only sensors, and krypton and xenon-133 are not. You're just not going to detect anything with a gamma sensor or with TLDs.
It's a curious statement because there's no way that's possible. Physically impossible for the fuel to escape into the water and not escape to the environment. There's a time delay, but it's going to get out. You just don't keep it on site forever. That's impossible. So unless they've turned the radiation detectors off, that would explain why they're not seeing anything. If they're on, they're seeing there's stuff getting out. They should be seeing it. Unless they posted them upwind too. That's another neat game they sometimes play.
Well, back in the day, Dr. Jester over at Penn State was working around the Krypton 85 release at 3 Mile Island, and the DOE proposed using gamma sensors, and he said it's not going to work, and he went back to his lab, he created a report, and sure enough, you put pressurized ion chambers, Geiger-Muller tubes, all of that, in a Krypton 85 environment. And I did the same thing with xenon-133 back in the day. And unless you have a pancake tube with a mica window, such as there is deployed there at C-10, you're just not going to detect it. It's just, it's pretty much like there's nothing there because it's low energy beta.
Thanks,
right?
Dan.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, we're getting pretty engineering, but as you can tell, Dan is another terrific, great technical mind that we have on our team. I'm looking at the clock. Dan, you're in California where it's not even dinner time probably, but here I know people are getting tired. Dave is calling in from Chattanooga, Tennessee. So thank you again, Dave, for joining us, and I look forward to seeing your write-up of this. It's always a pleasure. I am going to bring up Karen Claggett, our board member, and first I'm going to show you this nice little slide. Karen, can you unmute yourself?
I have, yes.
Okay. And here is a little background slide while you begin your talk, and you want to just tell who's in that picture there from 30 years ago?
So I am, as one of the board members, I want to alert everyone to the fact that C-10 is planning a celebration for September 25th. That's a tentative date at this point, but we hope that that works, and we'll certainly get an invitation out soon with the details. We're planning a garden party at a beautiful house and garden in Newbury. And we want to invite everyone who's interested in C-10, has been a part of C-10, to participate. This is our 30th anniversary year, and we want to take a look at all the things that we have shared in terms of our beginnings and all that we've accomplished together. And we look forward to what we can achieve in the future together. And we want you to join us. We have a lot to celebrate, as Natalie suggested earlier when she was going through all that C-10 has accomplished just in this last year, which was, of course, a very difficult year. We want to ensure that you're there in this time when we have all missed our friends and are now very excited to be with them again. We don't want you to forget your C-10 friends, and we want to share with you C-10's pride in 30 years of its hard work. So please put the September 25th on your calendar. We'll get out the invitations and the details soon and confirm that date. And we hope to see everyone there. You mean a lot to us, and we'd like to be able to celebrate with you. Thanks.
Thanks, Karen. So thank you all again for taking your time out for here. It's a beautiful summer evening. It's also the last day of kindergarten for my daughter, which is very exciting. So it's wonderful that you all have taken time to be here. I'm so appreciative to especially our longtime supporters, our board members, our staff. Raise your hand, me and Mike, okay. And you know, our advisors and our boards. So we have time. If people want to stick around for a couple more questions, we certainly can do that. I don't want to cut things off early, but I know people are getting Zoom fatigued. We're pretty excited. Our board hasn't met as a in person since, well, we had a party for our new office last January of 2020, and then that was one of the last times. And so we're going to get together in person next month, so that'll be great. So any other closing questions or comments that people want to make? I'm going to open it up. Feel free to jump in. Pat.
I was going to say, I think this was a fantastic meeting and so informative. I would imagine we all learned a great deal. And thank you, Natalie, for organizing it so beautifully.
I'm glad it went well, and this will be posted on our YouTube, as I said. So if you know anyone who couldn't make it, they can skip through to the exciting parts. David, thank you especially so much for joining us and contributing to our success in so many ways over the months and the years, and we're so lucky to have you on our team. And to all of you, and if I don't hear any other comments, going once, going twice. Thank you, Robin Reed, about your comment. Some of you can open it up and see the chat. He made a comment about the earthquake in 1929 in Newfoundland. And that is true. That is sort of the issue about the concrete issue and needing to make sure that if the worst case scenario, that it would continue to protect us. And so a lot more is on our website, c-10.org. You will see our blog. You will see resources for living near Seabrook, more information on the concrete issues, on our radiological monitoring, and you'll continue to see more about our climate resilience project, including this short video. So thank you, everybody. We look to you for your support. We look to you to spread the word about our work. Many people don't realize that we are here toiling away, but we've been doing it for 30 years. And I, for one, am really proud to be a part of this organization, and so grateful to people like Chris Nord and Debbie Grinnell and Pat Skibby and Diane Teed and others who have been at it, and Dan, you as well, who've been at it for so very long, and doing this important work to protect the beautiful part of the world that we call home and the people that live here. So thank you all.
Thank you, Natalie.
All right, with that, big wave to everybody. We will conclude the evening. Have a great summer and keep in touch. Hope to see you in September. Bye.